Hello and welcome back to the Mum Show. Coming up on today's show, we are going to be talking about co-parenting and making a good team with your spouse. So grab a pen and paper, grab a cup of tea, make yourselves comfortable, and let's get started. Welcome back to the Mum Show. We are joined in the kitchen once again with child therapist Emma Brown and Pastor Claire Hooper.
Hello.
And on today's show, we are talking about co-parenting, making the great team with you and your spouse. I love this subject. Don't look so worried. It's fun.
I'm not. Go Team Hooper. Go Team Hooper. Go Team
Awesome.
Hooper.
Fly that flag. Come on then, Claire. What do you do great? What do you love about Team Hooper?
Oh, I just love that he's lots better at things that I am not good at.
Oh,
you know, when you hit stride. I mean, we've been married 20 years, we've been together 25, we've got 3 kids, and there's just those wonderful moments. They're not every day, but you hit that stride where everybody's in sync and they're doing what they're really good at, and yeah, those are the best. They're the highlights, aren't they, of family life?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's interesting because you've been married for how long?
20 years.
20 years, wow. I've been married for a little bit less than that, but I think in an ideal world, I think you have these discussions maybe before you start to have a family. Do you think?
Yeah. How are you going to co-parent?
Yeah.
We never went there.
We didn't.
No, we didn't either.
Yes, in an ideal world, Emma.
We're reaching.
It's not an ideal world.
We're reaching for the stars on this show, aren't we? But I do think in an ideal world you do have those discussions beforehand because
pre-marriage is
so important, isn't it? Because I think I know that I talk a lot about what we bring to our families from our past, and when 2 people come together, they're coming from hugely different backgrounds, hugely different ideals and ways of being parented themselves, and they're coming together, and you join together, you have your children, your family, and you somehow expect it to just work. And yeah, in an ideal world, you've kind of got a real understanding of where your partners come from, what value base they hold, what value base you hold, what ways you want to discipline your children, what are the big issues, what are important to you, what are important to your partner. But it doesn't. Sometimes we just learn as we go along, don't we?
We had a huge shock. We'd not had that. We'd had some discussions, but we were 18 and 19 when we were met. We didn't even dream about having a family. So when we had our first child, and I was due to go back to work, Matt was like, "Why are you going back to work? You're going to stay home, aren't you?" And I was like, "No." Like, for me to be happy, I need to work. He was like, he'd not even considered that I would go back to work. It is massive. He was like really put out. And it took a while, but for us to work it out. Obviously I went back to work and obviously we worked it out, but it was a conversation we'd never had, and totally right, we should have done. We should have discussed those things and come to a compromise and agreement about it.
I think the only thing we discussed was that as it was coming to my actually giving birth, I think Dominic made it really clear. He was like, I want to be involved. Like, this is not all you, just so you know. And literally, I remember holding her when she was like 2 days old, and someone came in to visit us, and Dominic was like, they said, "Oh, how are you going to get on? Are you confident? Are you worried?" And they're talking to me. And he was like, "We're going to be fine. We're both going to do this. This isn't just Marina's child. This is both of us. We're both in on this." And he was really like, I think that was the only decision that we'd made, was that it's going to be a joint effort, that it wasn't just going to be all sort of like, I'm mum, you do your thing, and then come back at the weekend sort of thing. But yeah, I love co-parenting. I think it's fun because you're like, it is a buzz, isn't it? Because you've got someone to chat to about, and I feel really fortunate. I have absolute admiration and respect for anybody who walks this on their own, because when my husband gets home, I'm just like the relief. Or if I've had the kids for a really long time, or if he goes away, all those little things like putting the bins out, I'm like, my goodness, how do people do this? So I think it's such a blessing. and we've got to see it from that place and then work out the difficulties.
And I think we've got to update our thinking on like co-parenting. Roles are definitely reversing and changing, and families don't look the same. But sometimes we try and get stuck in those moments where you do things the same. The woman does this, the man does that. The woman does this, the man does that. And actually, it doesn't matter anymore. Time is precious. It's one of our most precious commodities, I think, certainly in my family. And we just have to constantly assess, at least a month in advance, we go, who's doing this, who's doing that? We just have to talk about it.
Yeah, but I suppose sometimes it's really ingrained, though, in us in terms of what we're used to, what our experience was growing up. I know my husband, Dave, his mum was pretty much at home all the time. And he had his grandma and his mum kind of both very present for him and his sister. Looking after the children, whereas I grew up, my mum has always worked and always worked pretty much full time. So I didn't have that experience. And it didn't even enter my head to think that he would expect me to stay at home. So that was a discussion we absolutely needed to have. We had it during pregnancy, but we did have it. And thankfully, my husband's pretty open-minded. So he was able to kind of be quite flexible. And also, I think the advantage that I have is that he was very well kind of skilled up with keeping a nice, clean, tidy house, and he can cook as well. So that was a bonus.
Do you share a lot now, though, don't you, with dropping the kids off and picking them up because of your work schedules? You're often sharing a lot of that.
People who know us really well often think our roles are quite reversed.
Do they?
Yeah, so Dave does a lot of the kind of cleaning and the housework and the ironing, and I would be much more kind of like maybe just making sure the kids had what they needed for school and was kind of on top of more of their activities and their friendship stuff and all of that.
There's a lot of pleasure in doing what you're good at, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if you find out what each other's good at and stick to those strengths, get into the end of your day and feeling like you've done a good job.
Yeah.
I just think that's the way God made us as well.
Absolutely. And I think you have to be a tag team.
Yeah.
You do have to be a tag team. We're like that. We pick up, we'll go through a season where I'm working more and through a season where he'll be working more. And we just kind of hold it in a balance because we work together. So sometimes there's more pressure on him and sometimes there's more pressure on me. And we've literally been in a process before where Dominic will be in the editing suite and he'll be doing all these different things and he'll be like really full on with it, and I will make sure that he is fed, that the house is perfect, that the kids are looked after. And we physically did a pressure change once. He was like, I'm giving this whole burden over to you now. You can work, I will go and enjoy the children. And it was literally like, you have to work like that because that's what it takes to be productive.
But you couldn't have done that unless you were really good at communicating that with each other.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
picking up on each other's cues and recognising what the needs of each other. It's just being in tune with each other, I guess.
Yeah, and I think you have to look after each other. Yeah. You know, because we don't have a parents there looking after us. Nobody else is going to make sure we're okay. And we have a responsibility to make sure that we're okay. You have a responsibility to say, am I getting this enough or am I doing that enough? But I think when you're married, you should absolutely, if you're raising kids, just be mindful of the fact that it's not all about the children. Yeah. That if you want those children to flourish, they need to have their parents in a good place. And sometimes that might mean that you have to take your focus off for a little bit. They have to go play in the garden and you have to just go and check in on the other person. And I hear you say that as well. You go, I must check in on that. Or I must remember to have that conversation. And it's just making sure that we look after each other and that everybody's okay and we don't become so absorbed in our journey or the children's journey, because you get that, don't you, where...
But they're not going to live with you for the rest of your life, but your spouse is. We sometimes say to our kids, before there was you, there was us. Go away for a bit.
It's interesting. Should we have a listen to what the kids think? Yeah. Their opinion on this. Okay, let's take a look at the kids' video.
And action.
I think my mum and dad have kind of the same rules, but not really, because my dad is a lot more chillaxed, and if I don't do something, then he'll say, "Oh, Nathan!" and he won't send me up to my bedroom for 20 minutes. And with my mum, if I spill a bit of coffee, "Nathan, clean it up and then go to your room!" That's all I hear, and she turns into the Incredible Hulk. Or like, what's his name? Iron Man.
When I'm in with my dad, I feel safe, because if if someone tries to murder me, then you'll just punch him. And with my mum, I feel safe as well, because she's very safe, and she's a very safe mum, and I feel comfortable with her because I know that when I'm in trouble, or if I'm getting like really scared by something, then she's always with me.
Do you think that they try and parent you in the same way, or do you think they parent you differently?
I think they parent me in the same way because they sort of use the same strategy for bedtime and for lunchtime and for dinner time and for breakfast. I think they probably help me grow in the same way.
I think they try as much as they can, but my dad lets me stay up quite a bit later, so when I'm staying up with my mum, it's normally like I'm normally going to stay up maximum 9:30. With my dad, I might stay up until 10, and then I wake up in the morning at 8 in the morning.
In your mum and dad's vision for you, what do you think they're trying to raise you to be like?
I think my mum and dad are trying to raise me to be a Christian and a child of God, and I think they're trying to raise me to help me, just so they let me know that you can be whatever you want to be, as long as you like, you know that you've got Jesus in your life and he like helps you. So they say like you could be like an artist, or you could be a footballer or a cooker. Just be the person that you feel like you want to be.
Awesome. Nathan?
Well, I agree with Poppy. My parents want raised me Christian, and my dad says I can be pretty much whatever I want. My mum wants me to be a rugby player, but I don't really want to be hit in the face by multiple people at the same time in a few seconds.
He is hilarious.
I know, and he knows it.
I know what he's going to be.
Loves it.
He's going to be a comedian.
Yeah, he did talk me through his comedy style, actually.
I love it.
Gave me a little lesson. But I love that. You know how Poppy says, my parents have the same vision and parenting style,
Yeah.
because they put me to bed at the same style. They get me up and give me breakfast in the same style, and lunch in the same style, and dinner in the same style.
That's hilarious.
And it really makes me chuckle, because when I get up, like, my focus is, I like to get the kids busy, so I'm like, right, Lego, craft, play, anything like that they enjoy, because then it gives me space to kind of wake up myself. So I just get them straight engrossed. This is what my husband does when they wake up. Take a look at this photo.
Oh, how hilarious. How bless.
Yes.
Laundry basket.
Brilliant. Laundry baskets, dummies, duvets and the television. So we're totally... And the dog sat next to
I'm with Dominic.
Definitely.
So like, yeah, we as soon as she said that, I thought, yeah, we don't share that parenting style.
Do you know what though? I think it's okay.
Yeah,
I think it's really healthy and
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
good, because I think that kids are so much more resilient than sometimes we give them credit
Oh,
for as well.
totally.
They know exactly the kind of, and they adapt their behaviour. They kind of adapt their expectations depending on which parent is kind of in charge at any given
Absolutely.
moment.
You could be a real control freak if you only want to do things your way, though.
Yeah.
If you think your way's the only way, like with your kids are going to miss out on all the varieties of, you know, whether you've got a spouse who can co-parent with you, or whether it is, like you've mentioned before, like friends or relatives or grandparents, all those things, childminders, school teachers. If you've got it in your head that you're the only one that can do that and that you're the saviour of your children, it is exhausting.
So let's look at that for a second. How do you think that we need to respect the boundaries of the other people that are co-parenting? Like you say, whether that is a husband or a wife or somebody else who's responsible along with us in the care of our children. What do you think we need to look at to kind of ask ourselves the question, am I overcrossing a boundary or are they overstepping mine?
Well, I think you need to decide together about what are the, you know, it's fine that we have different ways of parenting. It's fine that we have different styles of interacting with our children and different strengths. But I think it's deciding on what are the big issues, what are the issues where actually this is where we have to be on the same page, because otherwise it is confusing, or it's going to be potentially, sometimes even damaging when children are getting such extreme, different messages. So I think it's about really recognising which are the issues that are kind of okay. What are the values? Is it fine that I will always do a home cooked meal and my husband? Well, it's usually the other way around, actually. But is that those sorts of things are fine? But actually, is it the things that are really important? And for us at the moment, it's things like keeping the boundary of mobile phones coming out of bedrooms at a certain time. If I go out or I'm away, I need to know that Dave will still put that boundary in place.
Because it's really important to you. I just think that's key. There's times when some things are just really important to me and not as Matt, but Matt respects me to keep those boundaries because we're unified. Where there's unity, there's blessing, there's God's blessing.
And unfortunately, within marriages, within any relationships, it's not all plain sailing, is it? And when it goes wrong, when co-parenting goes wrong, there's usually two main reasons. One is there's something going on with the adults, and that could be relationship difficulties, and that manifests itself often within the kind of the way that we parent. If we're harbouring kind of resentment or difficult feelings towards our partner, it's all too easy to use the parenting arena to kind of put each other down.
I've seen that.
And that can be hugely damaging, or bring things out, or just kind of play out those kind of difficult feelings and emotions towards your partner in front of your children. Really, really difficult.
It's unsafe for the children, that as well, isn't it?
It can be,
because the adults around them are supposed to create that stable, consistent environment that represents Father God to them, but it's confusing, and then you're potentially making them feel like, what's going on? Who do I trust? Can I trust the people around me?
Are these people safe? Can they be looking after me right now? Because if you feel out of control and they feel like they have to look after you or hold that, it's too big for them, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think it's really hard when one of you, as a parent, you see the other one crossing the line. Because the biggest thing for me is, like, if you've got an issue with how the other one parents or has dealt with a situation, if possible, don't shame them, don't kind of criticise them in front of the children. Engineer a situation where, later on you can have that discussion. You can say, I know that you were feeling like this at that point, but that really wasn't okay what you said, or it hurt me when I heard you really criticise her in that way. So you can do that wherever possible, but there are some occasions where you do have to kind of intercept in the moment, don't you? Because
you do.
Like we've said before about flipping your lid, we're all capable as parents of losing it and losing the plot. And I think it's our responsibility to kind of obviously safeguard our children and safeguard our spouse. If we can see that they're getting to a point where they're going to cross a line that's not okay, we do need to know and have the courage and assert ourselves in a way that's going to protect them and protect our children.
And we can do that as well. We don't have to do that confrontationally. We don't have to do that aggressively. You can actually readjust things. And I think it's another one of those situations where you have to be really mindful in the run-up, because people don't usually just flip their lid from nothing. There's usually it's that whole thing of taking care of each other, isn't it? And watching out and saying, where's this heading? And I find it interesting how, we've got boundaries that you just need to let them establish for themselves. I remember my husband used to take 2 hours to put the kids to bed. It used to drive me bonkers. I'd be like, oh my goodness. And they would just they'd get really playful, and I wrestled with that for some time, because I was thinking, this is stressing me out because she needs to get to sleep. It's stressing me out because I've never got an evening with you. It's frustrating because this is just not necessary, because she's there all day. And I'd really like it if you played with her at 3 o'clock so I can get on with something else rather than 9 o'clock, But actually, in the end, we kind of had to rework it and just say, do you know what? Actually, you two together, that combination is super playful. What do we need to plan in there? Well, it actually came that, can I just put her to bed? because I'm loads more calming and she just sees you as fun. So I just think that would be much better for us. But it's something you have to work out away from the children, because I think it would have just been so damaging if I'd have stormed in there and gone, God, you know, I'm waiting for you. We're supposed to be together right now and you're still putting her to bed. And even though I felt that at that time, like really frustrated with him, you know, I just got really good at punching the air in the corner of the room with nobody looking and going, oh, are we done? We're nearly done. Like that, and then go back and do it nicely. But, you know, there's things like that where actually, you know, it's not the end of the world. It's not a massive deal. But like you say, there's other situations where if there is a complete different separation of vision in how we raise our kids, actually that's really difficult. And it's really hard because we can't, as much as maybe people would love to, we can't just say, you are having no relationship with my kids. You know, there are instances actually where that may be necessary, but quite often there is a relationship that can happen there. But it's very hard. That Nathan, who was on the video, his parents had separated, and actually they'd come up with a really, from his point of view, they worked together on the vision of how he was raised. One was a bit more chillaxed at bedtime, he said, than the other one, but generally they had a very similar way of co-parenting, even a place of separation. But what advice would you give to people, like perhaps if there's somebody who's trying to raise their child as a Christian parent and the other person isn't a Christian, or you know,
are you talking about when couples have separated then?
Well, sometimes when they separate, and sometimes actually, you know, I have a lot of mums contact me who are new mums and who are new Christians, and they're like, actually, we thought we were united in our parenting, but I want something different now. Where do I go in that?
I mean, that was my early experience. As much as we were both saved, Matt was suffering with anxiety attacks, and he was very depressed and a nervous breakdown in our early marriage, and then took that into when our firstborn. And so there were times when I would say, I'm just going to bundle the kids out, you know, and I respected his journey, loved him, but knew that he was not in a place where he would be maybe a safe person. He was never, can I just say, he was never violent towards the children or anything like that, but his mental his mental state, his health and well-being at that point was not going to help him build relationship with the children. So there were plenty of times when I just go, you know, just go do something, go for a run, I'll put the kids to bed. And I did, along that time, just have to have a lot of patience, have some really good trusted friends that I could, like you, to, and we just had to walk that through together and come to a place of peace. It was tough. I'm not saying it wasn't tough. I smile now, but it was really hard. But and it was separate, and I did it on my own a lot in those early days. But we came out the other side, and it was through talking and talking and talking and agreeing and disagreeing and talking some more that we got through it. Where there's unity, there's God's commanded blessing.
I think that's amazing that you were able to do that. I think there are some times where it gets to the point where either you do have to separate because it's gone on so long that it's become a really, really kind of toxic, damaging environment for your children. And in those situations, I think often people need some help, or even before then, or even about kind of, you know, we're at this place where we cannot do this on our own. We have tried everything, but we are on such different pages that we can't find a way back. And those, you know, the relationship roles, I mean, in the therapy that I do, I talk a lot about relationship roles that get internalised often from early childhood and then get recreated, you know, in older, you know, in other relationships that we have, particularly with our partners. And so, you know, the type of therapy, when I work with families that are separated, I often have to do some work with both parents individually, kind of really understanding their own history and kind of helping them to make sense of why they're responding and feeling the way they are, and then bringing them together and thinking about how do we, you know, what's possible within this, how can I help facilitate those conversations in a safe environment where it gives them an opportunity to really think about what they want, both of them, and hopefully, you know, bring them together, or at least get them to a place where they can agree to parent separately, but on a much more kind of together path.
Yeah, under a shared vision.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think often we're in a culture where everywhere love and romance and relationship is promoted, where you complete me, you are the other half of me, you are everything about me, and that puts this pressure on expectation on relationships and on marriage and on people, that actually the health or the well-being or the perfection of that person directly impacts me, as though that person is my source. But they're not. Or at least they shouldn't be, because the truth is that Jesus is our source.
Absolutely.
He is our source of love. He is our source of wholeness. He is our source of strength. And I absolutely believe that he designed us to be in relationship with others. I believe that he designed us to be in community with other people. But if all of that failed, if the olive produced barns, the barns produced no wheat and the olives had no fruit, you know, still he would be our God. Still he would be our source.
Right.
And I think if people are finding themselves in a place where there is brokenness and there is things that are difficult, I know that at times I just have to say, God, you are my source in this. Jesus, you will be my source in this. And actually, when we tap into a source of love and we tap into a source of strength that can cover a multitude, an absolutely multitude of downfalls. And actually, we can tap into a place where love is patient and it is kind and it keeps no account of wrongs and it isn't haughty and it isn't arrogant. You know, it is seeking peace. And I think that to get in that place, sometimes we need to analyse, what am I trying to get from this relationship? I know that in an ideal world, we will be in a place where there is absolute flow and absolute unity, and you might not be in that place right now. And that story, actually, like you say, for some people, that may never quite get to what you thought it would do. But you as a person, your source is Jesus. Yes. You as a parent, your source is Jesus. And when you tap into that, you know that there is a perfect love and that can cast out all the rest.
Yeah, it's not a Pinterest love.
Yeah.
It's perfect love.
Yeah.
So different. Unless the Lord builds the house, your hard work's in vain. You've got to plant yourself in the word and in those promises of God for your life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what would you say, we're just kind of wrapping up at the end now, but I'm really curious, is there any advice that you would give to a mum who's become a Christian, who is married to somebody that isn't? Now, you've been in that situation and you've pastored forever, so I've got about 2 minutes left, and I would just love to grab that kind of nugget of advice, because I hear it all the time.
Over to you, Emma.
Pressure. I think every relationship is completely unique, so I don't think there's a one thing that fits everybody. But what I would just say is that when you're in that situation, yes, draw on your kind of your strength. It's really hard because you've got one person that you are the centre of their world, that potentially the non-Christian, and then the Christian partner is absolutely focused on Jesus and the relationship with Jesus. So it's like, how do you negotiate that? And I think it's about communication. It's about being really honest and open. It's being authentic, about taking risks with each other. We talk a lot about kind of having to, the most brave thing that we can do is to be vulnerable and to recognise what's going on within us and share that with the other person. There isn't I guess what I'm saying, Marina, is that there isn't a complete answer to this. It's a journey, it's a working through, and it takes time and a lot of kind of conscious effort to join together.
So the tip is don't give up.
Yeah,
I think
tip is
so.
keep going. And
so.
prayer. Gosh, that can change everything.
Prayer helped me, definitely.
And you don't end where you start. Go on that lifelong journey with somebody. Don't look for the Pinterest love. Do the hard work when you need to.
Lovely. Guys, thank you so much. It's been good chatting to you again. And thank you too for joining us as well. We look forward to catching up with you on The Mum Show again very soon. Take care.
Hello parents, don't forget to say hello. We're at promisecollective.co.uk. Bye!